So you're going through something hard. I have about 10 minutes. Let's talk about it. The other day, I was on a run, and it was one of my first runs after the Nike Half Marathon. And I chose to run in the late afternoon, which means it's about 85 degrees outside and much, much warmer than I am accustomed to running in. So I get all my stuff ready, and it's a short run. It's like 3 miles. And I start running, and my brain immediately goes, this is really hard. And I'm running, and I remind myself that the first mile for me is always the hardest. And mile 2 is often even harder than mile 1. However, getting through those first 2 miles makes the rest of the run significantly easier when I can get through the first 2 miles. So I keep running, and the difficulty doesn't dissipate. I feel like I'm struggling to catch my wind. I feel like my body is heavier than it normally is. And I feel like really off on this run. Now, mind you, I usually run in the mornings, and I usually run fasted. And I usually run when it's about 20 to 30 degrees cooler than it was during this run. So I finished the run. I celebrate that I finished the run, and I tell my husband, gosh, that run was so hard. It really was awful. It was one of the worst runs I've had in my life. And after I said that out loud, I paused and I go, was the run hard, or was it just not what I expected it to be? Now, this is something to really catch when we're going through something hard or something that we judge as hard, is that we frame every experience with a certain context. And the context with which I was framing this run was according to the runs that I do in the morning when it's a lot cooler, in the morning when I'm fasted, and also on runs where I just flat out feel better. So, what I did unknowingly, subconsciously, what I did was I started this run, and I had this expectation that it was going to feel and be like all of the other runs that I do. And in reality, this run was nothing like all the other runs that I have done. So the context of this run was really inaccurate. And I didn't mentally prepare myself for the fact that this run would absolutely require something different from me, because the circumstances of this run were very, very different. So what I had done was I projected into the experience, into my mindset through my thoughts and my feelings, that this run was going to be much, much different. Or actually, this run was going to be much more the same to the runs that I had done in the past. And I think that we do this so often with ourselves. We get into a relationship with certain expectations that this is what this is going to be like, especially at the beginning when it's new and it's exciting and there's these hormones running, and we hope and we pray that maybe this is the one, and then we hit a bump in the road and we go, god, this is hard, right? And the question is it hard, or is it not what I expected it to be? Is it asking me to show up in a way that I hadn't planned to show up for? Is it asking of a new skill set for me? Is it asking me to stretch in ways that I didn't know I could, or I didn't know that I would need to, right? And that's what I'm offering today. If you're navigating something hard, is what were your expectations before you decided to step into this circumstance, right? To step into this relationship, or to step into this business, or to step into entrepreneurship, or to step in as a mom, right? Like, is raising kids hard, or is it just not what we expected it to be? Are our kids looking back at us and asking us to develop a skill set that we didn't even know we needed, right? We didn't know it was going to require this much effort. We didn't know it was going to require this much time. We didn't know it was going to require this much focus. We didn't know it was going to require this much emotional intelligence and regulation. And that's the thing that really unlocks so much for me, is when I reflected on this run, and this could be applied to any circumstance in your life, when I reflected on this run, I said, God, was the run terrible, or was I taking on something that was very new for me? And it was absolutely the latter. I was taking on something that was new for me, and my body was very much adjusting, and my mind was very much adjusting. And I really unknowingly allowed the criticism to come through, and I that facilitated me feeling bad or negatively or judging this run as ineffective or not good enough, when in reality it was new, and it asked something of me that I was not expecting to have to give it, you know. It asked me to run in a hotter temperature, which is significantly more difficult. It asked me to be patient with myself. It asked me to slow my pace down a little bit so that my body could adjust. It asked me to be gracious with myself and know that every run is still a run. Every mile is still a mile, right? And it allowed me to reflect on where maybe before I even get started, I subconsciously set myself up for failure or disappointment or fatigue, right? Because I didn't actually consider the other circumstances that might be different in this scenario that I wasn't used to. And I think so much in life, especially if you're taking on something new, it's it can be tricky to manage the expectations, especially if you wrestle with any type of comparison as to what that thing is going to require of you, you know? And so rather than looking at it as being hard, maybe we can reframe that to something that's more honest and more accurate, in that this is new and I'm learning and I'm growing, and I still get to take the actions and know that there will be discomfort here. And discomfort does not mean that I'm on the wrong path always. It doesn't mean that I am making a negative decision or a maladaptive decision. It can just mean that I'm in new territory. And that really aligns with human behavior and the nature of humans, right? If you're walking in a new city that you've never been to, it can be difficult to know which way is right, like which way you go, what's the right turn, what's the wrong turn, because you've just never been there. So we really get to bring in the grace with ourselves. And I think we really get to intentionally decide that if we are stepping into something, we also get to be ready to prepare ourselves for the unexpected and really open up to the idea that new sensations will show up, right? New physical sensations, new thoughts will show up, new ways of interacting with the circumstance will show up. And that's really where the inner work happens, right? That's really where we get to look at, oh man, there, that critical voice came in again, or that performance came in again, right? The performer in me really wanted this run to feel better, right? I wanted to feel capable, and in this run I didn't feel capable. And I can tell you, being married for almost 4 years now and being in a relationship for 7, that there are so many times when I feel like I'm in new territory, even though I'm in the same relationship, because I'm growing and my husband is growing. And even with kids, I had this wonderful conversation with this beautiful mom the other day about her son. And she was sharing with me that, you know, they hit sort of this quote unquote moment of inflection in their relationship. And when she sat with it and really challenged herself to see it at a deeper level, she realized that her son was going from little boy to young man, which meant that he was requiring something different of himself and he was asking something different of her. And she was aware enough and open enough to reflect on it from this space and decide to show up differently in their relationship. And she said it was very challenging and it was very confronting and it was really uncomfortable, because it asked her to on some level grieve the little boy, right? And embrace the young man. And embracing that new version of her son is new. It's unfamiliar, and she wrestled and reckoned with this idea that she wanted to do it well, but it's still her first time engaging in this way with her son, and looking at where she gets to lean in and where she gets to pull back. And there's an opportunity for us in all of that in our lives, and for you somewhere in your life right now. The question is, what were my expectations? What were the agreements that I made inside of me that maybe I didn't share with myself or another person to make this a smoother process, right? And to really empower myself and empower the people around me to show up differently, with more grace, with more compassion, with more determination and love, and to not let one run that didn't go the way I expected it to go, to create a space where I take my foot off the gas, or I decide that I'm not a great runner, or I decide that this is too much for me, or I decide that I can't handle it. And really, that's where the root of those beliefs comes from when we're very, very young, is the moment that no baby is born believing that they can't. No baby is born believing that they are unworthy. And so the moments in life in our younger years where we feel like we're not equipped, where we feel like we don't have the skill set or we don't have the support, instead of having the emotional and logical reasoning to say, well, I need more support, or I need this skill set, we just aren't equipped. And so we subconsciously decide that we just can't, or we're not good enough, or we make it mean that we're not capable. And that couldn't be further from the truth, right? It couldn't be further from the truth. I don't believe God makes a human and says this human is incapable. I'm making this one incapable. And so I offer this to you because if you are navigating something that feels really hard, take a moment to reflect on your mindset and your mentality and how you're going into this and the context that you're creating for this circumstance, and couple that with a lot of grace. Because I would imagine that what's actually happening is there's a new way of being that's being offered to you. And because it's new, it's uncomfortable. And because it's new, there's a lot of uncertainty there, right? So I encourage you to step in and be reflective and be gracious and be confident that no circumstance that comes before you is bigger than you and bigger than the divinity that moves through you. So that's my offering today. I love you. I'll talk to you soon.